Welcome to another video edition of Jeff for Banks. Sorry, I've been a little delinquent on getting the written blog continuing going, but I was on a hellacious road trip across the western United States last week. One of the things I was doing during that road trip was teaching executive development program at various states in the West. And one thing that students mentioned to me as a high priority game changer in the industry was what they termed the silvering of their customer base. I thought that was a pretty politically correct way to say their customer base is getting old. In other words, bank customers are actually getting older faster than the general population, and they deem that as a significant threat to the banking industry, particularly the community banking industry, and I think they're right. I think the one reason why we've been able to ignore this phenomenon is that generally those younger, the millennials that everybody keeps talking about, are not necessarily what we would deem profitable customers. Low balance checking accounts, for example, low balance, high transaction checking accounts are very difficult for financial institutions to make money at it, but still the life cycle of a customer is pretty significant when greater than 90% of customers tend to stay at the bank that they're at. So it's easy to dismiss a younger generation and all of their expensive technology-driven needs, but will we be able to win them back as they start to get balances? And of course, the executive development program students had their doubts. I think there are a couple things, actually three things, that I think banks can do now to lay the groundwork for maybe unsilvering of their customer base. In other words, minimally get younger customers in the door so that their customer base is no older than the population in which they operate. So one thing they can do to woo this customer base is use the parents of those younger customers as distribution points to those younger customers. I could use my own example, my own family example. Both of my daughters' banking relationships were driven by my wife and I selecting what bank they should belong to. And in fact, my daughter, who's now in her late 20s, still banks at the same bank that we opened her initial account at, although it's 2 mergers later. And by the way, she lives on the West Coast, and the bank that she currently uses doesn't have any West Coast branches. So she's stayed with the bank that we originally set her up at. And I think using parents as a distribution point to get the younger customers is a valid way to ungray or unsilver your customer base. I think the second way to do that is through fintech partnerships. Mint.com, for example, as a personal financial management account aggregator, has about 14 million users, which is probably far greater than banks have in terms of customers, unless you're the largest SIFI banks. So partner with these fintechs to do cool things to help the younger folks manage their finances. That's the way the industry trend is going anyway. So when somebody overspends their coffee budget, they get a notice from their PFM that via text message or some neat notification that they've overspent their coffee budget, or even win some badges like I do on my Fitbit watch. When I make my daily step total, I get a little award for doing so, a little behavioral science gratification there. So that's number 2, is to partner with a fintech firm to make that boring old checking account a little more interesting to the younger generation and much more useful to them in helping them manage their personal finances, which we know is very difficult today. It's a lot different than when our parents were younger and used envelopes in the night drawer to manage their money. The third thing I think that banks can do to unsilver their customer base is to be that financial counselor that we see survey after survey that millennials tend to like. They like the personal touch. They like to be able to talk to a human, sort of like my budget buddy type person that they can call, seek financial advice, help them set up that personal financial management app, and maybe even help them in monitoring their financial performance, sort of be that commitment coach that you get at the gym when you go to work out. You get that personal budget buddy in financial institutions. I'm not sure that our personnel capabilities are at that stage, but I think we ought to work towards it. So those are the three things that I think that banks can do today to unsilver their customer base. Number one is to use their parents as a distribution point, to convince their parents when the time is right to set up that account for their child at your bank, at the bank where the parent goes. So the second thing is to partner with a fintech firm to turn that boring old blasé checking account into something much more interesting and much more functional in helping them manage their personal finances. And third, create the capability in your organization to have that budget buddy and help those younger generation people get on the right financial path. That's how I think that financial institutions can unsilver their customer base and give themselves a better chance at an enduring future. Thanks.